the whole point of this is so a lot of that mental energy can just go down. So then you just open the guide, you get to your home, you go, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And then honestly, within about, I would say it's to walk through everything is probably going to take you maybe 10 minutes. Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here. Hey guys, Marissa here. I hope you're doing well. I always say that at the beginning because if I'm being honest, I always struggle with knowing how to start an episode, even though this is number 34. I always just like, how do I begin this? So I do, though, genuinely hope that you are doing well. And I love hearing from you guys. So go ahead and if you want to send me an email about a fun activity you've done, a cool place you've been to, some good food you've eaten, I would love to hear about that. I have basically, I use Google Maps as like a wish list. I don't know if anyone else does that, but anytime I hear about something, I find it in Google Maps and then I save it. And then if I'm ever in that city or near it, I can just pull up my maps and it's already there. Because I know I'm going to use Google Maps already. So I just use Google Maps for that. So there's a quick little tip for you. Use Google Maps as your kind of bucket list, if you will. And yeah, like we were watching a Somebody Feed Phil. If you don't know Somebody Feed Phil, you have to watch it. It's amazing. It's on Netflix. I don't know what VPN we were in. I think the United States. And it's amazing. It is so funny. Our kids love it. It's just great. And we've watched the episodes so many times. We were just watching it again. And we watched Madrid because we're gearing up to head over to Madrid probably at like the beginning of December. That's our loose plan. But I mean, you guys know how it is living this life. You have plans and then you just actually see what happens, right? So the plan is kind of end of November, beginning December, head over to Madrid. That's a big reason we're actually going to Costa Rica so I can take Spanish lessons and get my Spanish better. I know it's a little bit different, but it's going to be better than having none. And it keeps us in a warm climate for a little bit longer. And this time zone is really needed right now for us as far as working goes for Eric. So it checks all the boxes. So I know the Spanish is a little bit different, but at least I'm learning. That's what I think. And so if you can hear that grinding noise, there is construction happening at the apartment like 4 below us. And so it's not even very near. So if you hear construction noise, I apologize, but there's honestly no time to record that it's not happening. And so unless I record like at nighttime, and I guess I could, you guys, if you could follow my thoughts after 9:00, that would be a fun podcast episode. But anyways, I digress. We were watching Somebody Feed Phil last night, and as we were watching it, knowing we're probably headed to Madrid, I have Google Maps open, and every time he says a restaurant, I search it if it's one that, and we want to go to all of them, like we just do. And so I was saving, so now I have so many restaurants saved in my Google Maps. I already have loads of stuff over in Madrid saved, but now I have even more restaurants and stuff. So send me a good restaurant. I don't care if it's nowhere near where I am. I'll probably be in that zone eventually, and I'm just going to save it in Google. So go ahead and send it to me. I wanted to do a little public service announcement. I don't know what it is. It's about the podcast. I am so proud of this community and of the growth that has been happening here recently. I'm blown away every single time someone subscribes, every time someone leaves a rating or leaves a review. This just started out as a little, not hobby, but kind of a hobby, but just a way for me to try to help some families. And that is, I hope, still my goal. My goal is to help people. I love helping people. And every single time someone comes into this community, I just want to say thank you. And so if you're listening to this and you are subscribed, thank you so much. If you are listening to this and you're not subscribed, it would be fantastic if you would subscribe, because not for my ego, not to make me feel better, but as I've said a few times now, it simply is because of the algorithms. They need to see that people care about this so that it spreads. Because the more likes, the more subscriptions, the more ratings and reviews, the more likely Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all these things are to put it in people's For You. And so I would really appreciate it if you would just hit that follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're on. It's a little bit different place to place, but go ahead and just subscribe to the podcast. I would really appreciate it. So with all of that to be said, how long are we into here? And we haven't even really said anything right. But we are continuing on our roaming residence series, y'all. And I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, loving this one. It is making me so happy, because if I would have known these things when I started, I don't even know how far ahead I would be, as far as getting a house set up faster, not having that mental energy wasted. We've stayed in, it's around 20 Airbnbs or apartments. I don't count hotels in that number, because I'm hotel's a little bit different. But as far as a place where I need to set it up, the number's around 20, and that's a lot. 20 in about 18 months. So I'm getting pretty good at this. And so that's what this series is. It's all about getting into a place, getting it set up, getting settled, so that you don't feel like, oh man, I still have to do this. Oh, I still have to do this. On top of that, I want to go to this tourist attraction. I want to do this thing. I have to do the kids' school. The kids have this project. There's just so much, right? Because I think the thing that differentiates being a full-time traveling family versus just going on vacation, or being a rooted family, right, is we still have everything else. We still have the kids. We still have school. We still have relationships. We still have to make those phone calls. We still have when we get to Costa Rica, my kids all have to get their teeth cleaned. It's that 6-month cleaning again. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to find a dentist. And so we have all these additional things, right, on top of the normal things. And so the whole purpose of this series and of the settling in guide that I've created that you can get over on our website, the link's in the description. You do have to pay for it. It's the only thing I've ever charged for so far. So we'll see how that goes. And I really hope that you guys enjoy and get a lot out of it. The whole point of this is so a lot of that mental energy can just go down. So then you just open the guide, you get to your home, you go, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And then honestly, within about, I would say it's to walk through everything is probably going to take you maybe 10 minutes. No joke. Once you get to the house. And then you'll have your list of stuff that you have to get at the grocery store on that first grocery store trip, whether it's groceries for those first meals. We talked about that in a previous episode. Whether it's stuff that's missing from the Airbnb or whatever, however you found your place, right? That you enjoy to have. We talked about that in a previous episode. And today we're going to talk about home protection, house protection in two ways. One, kind of like protecting you and your family, but physically. But then we're going to transition to protecting your wallet. And I have some tips about things you can do to make sure when you leave the apartment or the house, you're not going to get some random message on Airbnb or WhatsApp. Oh, you owe us $200 because this happened. What? I don't think so. And all of this comes from, like I said, experience. So because I think it's important, and because, like I said at the very beginning, I started this to help people, I'm going to tell you, I have 5 things I think you need to do as far as protecting yourself and your kids in a home. I'm going to just give you all of those here in this podcast episode, but I'm not going to give you all of my tips and ideas for like when you go to leave for the second half. Okay. So I hope that as we walk through this, you can see like the stuff that I think is genuinely like safety. I'm going to give you all of that, but then just some money saving ideas. If you want to get all of those, you are going to have to go and buy the guide. So let's get into it. The first thing I think you need to do anytime you get to a new home is there are certain things you need to check for. The first of them being smoke alarms. So many Airbnbs do not have smoke alarms. And my parents had a house fire. Their house was not totally destroyed, but it definitely needed to be rebuilt because of smoke and water damage. So I would say it was maybe about 40%, 35 to 40% destroyed. But then just because of the nature of the fire, it started in their furnace and then it went through the walls and the ductwork. Just so that by the nature of that, almost everything had to be redone because just so many walls were destroyed. So fire and house fires are very close to me. And so I take this very seriously. And so many Airbnbs do not have working, even if they're there, they're not working. This Airbnb that we're in right now is actually the very first one ever to even have smoke alarms in it, but they're not working. They don't work. They're just there. And so we travel with smoke alarms. And I'll put a link to like just some Amazon fire alarms. You don't have to get those ones. We have looked and looked and looked, and we cannot find necessarily travel convenient fire smoke detectors. And so someone should invent that. Could someone that is way smarter than me invent a very flat smoke detector that you can very easily travel with? Like that would be great. We just grabbed some decently cheap ones. We travel with 3, I think, because then that way, depending on the size of the house, we're good to go. So we always check for smoke alarms, even if the Airbnb says they have them, even if you physically see them, check them. Push that button, see what happens. So yeah. The second thing we look for, and I'm not going to go into great detail on this because everyone has different ideas, but we do look for hidden cameras. Now, we don't go crazy, but we do look for hidden cameras. I actually have a link in the settling in guide to a YouTube video that it's an older video, but it does a great job of explaining how to find hidden cameras, but also the fact that he does a really good job to just comfort you to know that most people are not going to be those like creepy creeps that you're thinking they are. Like, because if they're going to go to that level, then you're probably not going to find their cameras anyways. But if you just want to do a general sweep, it's a great video, and I have that linked in the settling in guide. The next thing we look for is a fire extinguisher. And you've heard me say this in previous episodes if you've listened, that we actually keep a fire extinguisher beside our bed. This is something that we do ask the host to provide. I do think it's just a safety thing. Like if you're cooking and there could be a grease fire, I do think a fire extinguisher is a very, very understandable thing to ask a host to purchase and provide for the apartment. We keep ours beside our bed in our bedroom for 2 reasons. One, if there's a fire, we can knock it down, hopefully a little bit to get to our kids. So then at least we're together. But a second reason is if someone does break in, we can kind of use it as a way to defend ourselves. Like if you were to spray someone with the spray from the fire extinguisher, it would kind of take them back, right? Like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So that is kind of a dual purpose beside the bed thing. The next thing I always suggest, locking main doors, and check all the doors. Just check them, have someone stand outside, lock it and make sure it locks, make sure it's not gonna come undone, make sure that there have been some of our doors where you had to push really, really hard to get it in. And had we not but when you're on the inside, you think it's okay, but then it's not actually locked. And so check your doors, figure out, how does this door need to be locked? There's also, we've had some apartments where some locks are almost like a false lock. You think it's going to lock the door really secure, but then it doesn't. So just check all the doors and figure out how they get locked. And so then that way, when you go to bed at night or when you leave, it's nice and secure. Also make sure you know what key unlocks each door. And this is very, very important, especially in apartment buildings that might have multiple locks. So when we were in Mexico City, we actually, to get into our home, we had to unlock 3 doors. So we had to unlock the door on the sidewalk that kind of got us into the apartment building. And then there was an additional security door, and we had to unlock that one to then be able to go up the stairs. Then we had to unlock our apartment door. To get out of the apartment, we didn't have to unlock our apartment door because we could just open it. But that security gate, that security gate, we did have to unlock if it was shut. And so we always just check and make sure we know which key goes to which lock, and we make sure the kids know, because then in an emergency situation, you're not trying to remember which key is which. You need to learn that. And so that is something for your protection. Figure out which key goes where, which key locks which door, which lock, and then make sure you don't accidentally lock a door that you don't have a key to, because that is so annoying. So it's just so frustrating to be oh no, we actually don't have the key to that door. And so just make sure that you know what key goes where. Yeah. And then my last piece of advice for home protection is create a meeting space in every single new place you live. So then that way, if there is an emergency and you do have to get out of the house, or maybe some of you aren't in the house when the emergency takes place, and then you don't want your family to be nervous about where to find you when they get back to the apartment building or to the house. And so it can be somewhere in the parking lot. If you have a house, it could maybe be a place out on the street. It could be anywhere. But in each place you go, I just think it's a smart idea to just say, this is an emergency. You just need to get there. And especially if you have older kids who are maybe they're being left home alone more, or if an emergency situation does happen, they are able to get themselves out faster. I think so many people think, oh, well, I don't want to, do that because I'm going to get my kids out. No, I want my kids getting out. If there's a fire in our building, I don't want them going, oh, where's mom? Where's dad? I don't want them doing that. And all of my kids now are at an age where they are able to get themselves out safely. And that's what I want. I want them to be safe. And so it's not their job to worry about me. And so that's why why we tell them to go here. It's not, just stay where you are until I get to you. It's no, if something is happening and you need to get out, you get out and you get to this safe place. And we had that also in our home in Virginia. We had, if there's a fire, you jump out your window. We had a ranch, and so it was super convenient. On the 6th floor, not as convenient, but on a ranch, fantastic. And we told them, you jump out your window and you get over, and we had our meeting space, and we're and we'll get to you. You don't come to us and tell us that there's a fire. You don't come to us and you get out. That's your job as a kid. And so those are kind of my 5 things that I just think are smart to do in every single new place you go. And now we're going to kind of transition a little bit to what are some things you can do to protect yourself so that when you leave, you're not going to get an awkward phone call or message on an app, or while you're there at the apartment or house, something happens and now you have to reach out to the landlord and go, oh, well, this happened. So let's just go over a few of these things. Like I said, I'm not going to go over 100%. So if you want all of my ideas, if you like what you hear and you want to hear all of them, then jump into the guide and you'll get all of them. So my first one is pretty, I think, universal. Take pictures and videos when you get there. If there's a mark on something, take a picture of it. As soon as we got here, I noticed that the dining room chairs were like vinyl and they have rips in them, like on the seats. Well, it's not that I care that there's rips on the seats. I don't care. But I don't want to be told that I was the one that put the rips there. So I snapped a few pictures and I made sure that they were, that the date was easy to see on them, like that it had a timestamp. And so then that way, if for some reason the landlord comes back and was like, hey, we noticed when we were cleaning after you left that the chairs had rips, I could be like, oh, actually those were already there when we got to the apartment. I actually took some pictures if you want me to send them with the date. It's just a way to protect yourself, guys. Like that's what I'm talking about, protecting yourself and your wallet. So anything you see that could potentially come back or anything that's happening, right? Another example is if you notice that the shower drains are very slow, just shoot a message to your landlord and be like, hey, just wanted to let you know that the drain in the master bath or the hallway bath shower is really slow right now. You might want to have someone look at that. And just shoot them a message. Don't do it in a way that's complaining. Just do it in a way that's informative, okay? So yeah, take pictures and videos and just let the landlord know if you notice something isn't working right or doesn't seem to be correct. The next one, and I actually put this on Instagram and people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, head on over. It's Family of Dashes and it's fun. It's good. I like Instagram. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. But everyone really connected with this and I was glad. We buy plastic cups, not disposable. I want you to just imagine a large plastic cup. We buy those. You can get them for like $1 at a supermarket. Like they're not expensive. Seriously. They're so cheap because I do know why Airbnbs use tile, but oh my gosh, they always use tile floors and glass cups. And I don't care how careful your kids are, things are going to break. And so what we do is we just buy plastic cups when we get there. Again, not the disposable ones, like reusable plastic cups. So then that way, when they fall, when they tip over, because they're going to, the cup doesn't break. And so that's what we do. We just leave them there and we're just like, oh, not a big deal, whatever. They're super cheap. And I promise you, like for me, I buy 4, one for each of my kids. And it's cheaper for me to spend, even if they're $2 a piece, it's cheaper for me to buy $8 of plastic cups versus have 2 or 3 glass ones break, and the glass ones are going to run me around $4 to replace. And so I'm instantly like doing okay because I promise you they're going to break more. I think our record of cup breaking was in Peru. We were there the longest time, but oh goodness gracious, the amount of cups that broke. And I don't know what glass they used, but these things shattered like just everywhere on that tile floor. And that was not fun. So actually Peru is where we learned, hey, you know what? We can actually buy non-breakable plastic. So we learned that very much the hard way. So yeah, I'm going to give you one more. Okay. So if you're getting anything out of these, I would love it for you to jump over and grab the guide. But the last thing that I'm going to tell you to do is make rules for where food and drinks are and aren't allowed. And do that in each space you get to. And because for us, it doesn't really work to say no food allowed in the living room, because we've been in some places where basically the living room and the dining room are one. And so it's a very hard connection for them, for like to just to make that a universal rule doesn't really work. So we do have a universal rule of no food in the bedrooms. That's unless you're sick. That's kind of the exception. Unless you're sick and you need to maybe have like some toast or something while you're sitting in bed, we don't do food in bedrooms. That's not allowed. They do take drinks into their bedroom, but only water. And because in that way, if it spills, at least it's just water. But then we just look at the space and we go, okay, where is food and drink allowed versus where is it not allowed? And the reason we do this is because sometimes the furniture is just not going to be set up in a way that is maybe comfortable for all of us to have dinner at the table. And so we do maybe need to split up a little bit. And some people maybe are sitting in the living room. Some people are sitting at the dining room. And so we just kind of check it out. But then we say, okay, but it's not allowed here. Or maybe mom and dad, like me and Eric, are only allowed to sit and eat there, like to just try to protect the furniture. And so that's kind of what we do. So that's going to be the last one I give you from kind of protecting yourself so that you don't get charged for things that you do or didn't do by an Airbnb or VRBO or whatever you use, right? So we have one more episode in this series, and it's about leaving. And it's just so close to home to me because right now as I'm recording this, I'm like 2.5 days away from leaving. And so everything in this guide, I'm actually getting ready to do. And so it's just very timely. And so I hope that this was a good episode for you guys. I would love to hear what you think about it. Send me a Instagram message, send me an email, whatever. And that is going to be it for this as we talk about home protection, protecting your home and yourself as we are trying to make a comfortable space as we're traveling around this world full time. So I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I hope you continue to travel joyfully.